Hi folks, so those of you who've been watching the past few videos for the past few weeks know that I've been trying to get to a Mars going direct video. And I was preparing for that today and I realized I still sequentially there's something wrong with me. Mars direct starts to make his aspects squaring Chiron, trining Saturn, trining the North Node, trining Neptune, starting the last week of March. I don't want to wait till the last week of March to do that video, because when it comes to squaring Chiron and trining Saturn, Mars is already within a 5-degree orb of that. So as far as we're concerned, Mars is doing that. And I know that for myself, I can feel that and I know what it means and I want to be able to convey it to you. And I will be doing that video. But because those aspects go exact after, the last week of March, and we're still in the second week of March, I was like, I need to do next week's weekly overview first sequentially, because I want to talk about next week first. And next week, there continue to be some important aspects that I want to get out of the way. Then I will do the Mars direct video well in time. So the bottom line is today is Friday, the 14th. I'm going to do, the only reason why you can see me hesitating is that I typically do the weekly overview on a Sunday or a Monday of the week before, but I'm doing it on a Friday night. I'm probably going to post this on Saturday morning. So it's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's still decent time. And then after that, we'll do the Mars. Mars is direct. Mars just has been moving really slowly. So the fact that, Mars has been within that 5-degree orb of Chiron since the beginning of this week, I would say, even earlier. It's just so happens that he went direct on February 23rd, 24th, and is moving ahead slowly. But at this point in time, he is moving and starting the last week of March into the first week of April, first couple of weeks of April, the aspects are going to come on top of each other. And they are important aspects because they trine these three important points. Saturn, it's the three important planets, if you like, the Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune in Pisces. And eventually what all of this is culminating to is Mars opposing Pluto at the end of April. In my opinion, what it's ultimately going to end on is Mars trining Venus once Venus is in Aries and Mars continues to be direct in Leo. But we'll cover all that in my Mars direct video. The reason why I think it's so important to cover Mars, as I said, is so much of the theme of March and April continues to be, and particularly March, continues to be stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. It's the month of Pisces. We had under the new moon of Pisces. We just had the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo yesterday, which is related to the new moon in Pisces, and Venus and Mercury retrograde are going to come back into Pisces. Mercury just went retrograde today. So that's going to be the sequence. Rather than do the Mars video first, I'm going to do next week's overview first, and then we'll get to the Mars videos. Also, because once I do my Mars video generally, the next set of science-specific videos that I want to do for the membership part of the channel will be on Mars direct through Saturn, supporting the Pisces part of the chart. And it's just a really important energy. We are going to be getting support, all of us, from the Cancer part of the chart as Mars is direct to help stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. I hope you've all survived the full moon yesterday, the full moon lunar eclipse. It was definitely, at least for me, a full moon kind of on steroids. Yesterday, I finally got to a point where I just had to make some choices about what I would do and how I had to organize my day. As I've mentioned to you, as we get to the full moon, certainly my sleep was disturbed. You're anxious, you're intuitive, and, all the kind of those lunar impulses are sort of actively fomenting and working on you, and you're worked up about things, and you don't know what's going on. And of course, the full moon was opposite Saturn. I would imagine many of us, I certainly could feel the full moon opposite Saturn. It wasn't, there are full moons of bounty and there are full moons of austerity with Venus retrograde and Mercury getting retrograde, and it's just it was a lot heading to yesterday's full moon. So I wonder how it was for all of you. I'm happy to be on the other side of the full moon. As I've said to you, the week after the full moon is the most productive week in a month. So do take advantage of this next week. You might find that the energies are more in balance and you are emotionally more balanced to be able to get things done and sorted. I am finding that if I keep showing up to handle and manage responsibly and with discipline the Pisces part of the chart, the path clears. If I don't, right now the energy is such that it feels very alarming, and it feels like if I don't get in front of something, something's going to get in front of something that I will then have to respond to, which will be less pleasant. I also, over the last week, hope that for those of you who felt an opportunity brewing in the Aries part of the chart have been able to take advantage of it with Venus retrograde conjuncting Mercury. Again, if you want more information on that, you can look at my last video. We are stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, and that remains the most important energy in both March and April. But the future that we're trying to get to, as I've said numerous times on this channel before, is represented by the Aries part of the chart, where we still have one more North Node solar eclipse on March the 29th, and the Taurus part of the chart, where we have Uranus, and the Gemini part of the chart, where we have Jupiter. So with that Venus retrograde conjuncting Mercury in Aries, there was the possibility, as you headed into this week, that there was some sort of opportunity that may feel conditional, may be coming from the past, may or may not lead to something, but something in the air about a future state, with all the attention largely still needing to be given to the Pisces part of the chart with the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo opposing the Sun and Saturn. So Saturn kind of holding the full moon, saying, here are the consequences of not handling something proactively, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. Now, full moon eclipse in Virgo video done. All the sign-specific videos related to both the new moon in Pisces and full moon Virgo are done and in the member part of the chart. There are 3 ways to interact with me: the free content that I post on this site, the members-only content that I post on the site, which is for your rising sign, it's sign specific, and then you can get a personal reading with me. Information on membership and sign specific and readings is in the description box below. You can use the email address there to email me if you're interested in a personal reading. I'm running 2 specials right now: a $50 30 to 40 minute reading centered around one topic or one subject, and a $100 60 to 75 minute reading that is focused on the astrology of February, March, and April, the eclipses and Mercury and Venus retrograde, and how that connects with your birth chart. That is the housekeeping that I needed to get done. So it kind of fell in the sequence, and I remembered to do it early on in the video as opposed to at the end. Now, outside of, and I've already given you a heads up of what's coming next week in this past week's weekly overview, outside of, and please know that when I'm bringing up sign-specific content on the membership part of the channel, it's not to kind of entice or torture people, because it's just to let you know what is where, so you can then make your decisions with regard to at which level you want to engage. That's all. At least that way you know what is available and where and at what tier, and then you can make your choices accordingly. Outside of Venus retrograde conjuncting Mercury, which occurred on the 11th, and today is the 14th, the primary aspects that occurred this week, or the primary aspect that occurred this week, was the Sun conjuncting Saturn on the 12th. We had the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse on the 13th, which was opposite the Sun and Saturn, and then today Mercury went retrograde. So we are also dealing with a stationary Mercury, which very much, at least for me, added to, you know, the general craziness as we approached yesterday. All the aspects that happen next week, the week of March 17th, involve the Sun. What made this particular week that we're in that full moon so challenging for some, I would imagine, certainly for me, or challenging enough, was the fact that the sun was conjuncting Saturn. So we had a tremendous awareness. The sun is our unmistakable knowing awareness, our solar connection to source, our knowing on a soul level, not a mental level, not a heart level, at a soul level. Wherever the sun goes, I always say it's like this giant spotlight that looks at all the nooks and crannies and the dust bunnies. Everything is illuminated. But what is most of all is just awareness with a capital A, and a knowing, an unmistakable awareness. And when the sun and Saturn conjuncted, I would imagine that for most of us this past week, it's an awareness of responsibility. It's an awareness of what needs to be tackled. It's an awareness of cause and effect. It's an awareness of Saturn going through Pisces, as I've mentioned a number of times. It's not only a negative. There's also Saturn asking us, especially if we have Neptunian ambitions, artistic, creative, spiritual, monastic, therapeutic, healing, connecting to source, dissolving the ego. Saturn is asking for those ambitions to be realized in concrete terms, with planning and with a sense of responsibility and a discipline. Let's make this happen. Let's turn this into something. You want to form a dance troupe? Let's pull it together and let's let it not live in a dreamscape anymore. You want to form a business that allows people to do mindfulness retreats and allows them to take off for a weekend or a week in Hawaii or New Mexico or something like that. Let's figure out what that is, and let's get a business plan together and let's see whether this is going to work or not work, and what the pricing will need to look like, and whether this has legs or not. And let's structure it and let's figure it out. That kind of positivity. But Saturn going through Pisces is, of course, also trying to get us to act responsibly and with discipline, a part of a chart that has been handled likely very loosely when it comes to setting boundaries and showing up with responsibility to handle and manage affairs in the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. And the sun conjuncting Saturn every year, because the sun conjuncts Saturn every year, is a reminder of responsibility and consequence and what faces us. It is a get real transit. And it can be uncomfortable, and it can be heavy, and it can be a little terrifying. And it can be exciting if you're trying to do something ambitious, but it can be overwhelming. The personal planets right now, apart from the Sun, Mercury and Venus and Mars, Mercury and Venus are in Aries, and Mars is in Cancer. They're not close to the Sun. Mercury and Venus are now retrograde, and they will be retrograding back into Pisces, and they will both be conjuncting the Sun over the next few weeks. And those conjunctions will happen in the sign of Aries. And then at the end of March, the very end of March, both Venus and Mercury will come back into Pisces. So we're not done with the personal planets in Pisces. But right now, it's all about the Sun and awareness. And what this awareness gives us is the ability to take responsible action that is at the level of doing, that integrates, because it's the Sun, the energies of the Moon and Venus and Mercury and Mars into a coordinated set of action. Whenever the personal planets, Venus and Mercury, sometimes Mars if he's close to the sun, are going ahead of or behind the sun, their energy avatar, with Mercury communication and cognition, with Venus harmony and opportunity, with Mars action and setting boundaries, is expressed in kind of that in a purer and more specific form to the planet that is actually transiting a particular part of the chart. When the sun enters the chart, when the sun enters a house, that house's affairs are spotlit. And once the new moon occurs and the moon and the sun conjunct, it sets up a 4-week month of activity to bring that part of the chart into alignment. And all these disparate energies that are represented by Mercury, Venus, and Mars are integrated in the moon to bring that part of the chart into alignment. The sun next week, on the 17th, the sun conjuncts the North Node, in Pisces, of course. On the 19th, the sun conjuncts Neptune. On the 20th, the sun enters Aries, as he does around the same time every year. And on the 22nd, the sun conjuncts Venus, a retrograde Venus in Aries. And though this goes into the following week, on the 24th, the sun conjuncts a retrograde Mercury in Aries. It is all about the sun for the next 10 days. And some of these conjunctions are exciting, and some of them will continue to be challenging. I don't think that they will continue to be as challenging as the sun's conjunction with Saturn headed into the full moon lunar eclipse. But it is still a time of action and stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, because the sun is going to conjunct the North Node and then Neptune in Pisces, and will come with an awareness. With the North Node, this is why I'm not regretting doing this video now, because the sun's conjuncting the North Node is happening on Monday. Now, we're not surprised by this, because the conjunctions to the North Node are what create the eclipse. They're the eclipse points. So we've just had an eclipse that was opposite Saturn. So we would be expecting the sun to be close to the North Node. So it's a continuation of the eclipse energy, except the full moon lunar eclipse was in Virgo as a reaction to the sun and the Saturn conjuncting in Pisces. And if you want more on what I just said as far as the full moon that happened yesterday, not that far away, and the eclipse itself is an energy that goes from the middle of July of 24 to February 27, then you can take a look at the full moon lunar eclipse video that I did maybe about a week, 10 days ago. And there are sign-specific videos in the membership part of the channel related to that. So that content is there. I'm saying that so that I don't end up repeating all that information. But the sun is conjuncting the North Node in Pisces. And so we're likely to be entering into an awareness of what has been confusing about the North Node in Pisces right now is that the North Node's energy is not completely free to assert and express itself. The North Node's energy, and it's not going to be completely free to assert and express itself until it's done with its conjunction with Saturn in April in Pisces. The North Node right now is very mixed in with the Saturn-Neptune energy that has been in Pisces for a while. Neptune has been going over Pisces since 2012. Saturn entered Pisces in March of 2023. The North Node just entered Pisces earlier this year, but he went smack into Neptune and is going smack into Saturn. So this energy of Saturn trying to stabilize Neptune's influence in Pisces has got the North Node all wrapped up in it. The North Node going over any part of the chart is a very distinct energy of us needing to lean into that part of the chart to get something from it as part of our future development and growth. And I have covered this in the New Moon in Pisces video for the general part of the channel, and the New Moon in Pisces videos in the rising side, in the membership part of the channel. What this means in the Pisces part of your chart. typically how I see this energy showing up. The North Node eclipses going to the Pisces part of the chart, or any part of the chart, is where we, and the North Node has a tendency to entice, carrot at the end of the stick, create desire, create a hunger for something, create a yearning. Always approach the North Node energy in a grounded manner, with your emotional and financial security taken care of, because the North Node has a tendency to get us to just kind of, like the Fool card in the tarot, just kind of leap off the cliff. And then we end up in a situation that we've gone towards chasing the North Node, only to find that there's something kind of zany about it, or it promises more than it delivers, kind of, that's what I use. But even if it does, there's something about that experience that is invaluable in our integrating it, because it is part of our development. It is what we want. It is what we are yearning for. It symbolizes what the reincarnated soul, why we are here. What is going to bring us fulfillment or satisfaction? Now, fulfillment and satisfaction are not... shall we have this conversation about the North Node and about life in general? What is the first noble truth in Buddhist thought? That life is discontent. The word is dukh, which can be sorrow, but I prefer discontent, dissatisfaction, unhappiness. We're not going to be... The idea is that we incarnate because we're here, because we want to experience certain things. We have desire, so we incarnate. In Buddhist thought and in Vedantic thought, the way towards not incarnating is to recognize what that desire creates, this experience, our life, and to disconnect and to detach from desire. And that still is talking about Neptune, no other planet tries to get you to connect with that energy other than Neptune, to say, you're too attached to this. You have an egoic self that is too attached to this. And I'm going to remove this so that you can connect with the reality of what you are. And this idea of sort of bliss, of ultimately merging with sort of consciousness and swimming back into the consciousness ocean and kind of merging with it, can only happen once desire is eliminated. Once self, individual, egoic, I want to sing, dance, play water polo, sculpt, be rich, be famous, have children, experience a great romance, whatever it is that we're here to, those desires, those... There are some great words for it, but that I don't want to... Those imprints, those threads that we... that web that then makes us create this kind of 3D reality that we swim around in, because we are yearning for certain experiences. And the North Node represents, in our birth chart and in general as part of the evolution of what we're experiencing in life, it keeps us on this incarnated path. And it says, all right, the word is Maya, illusion, deception even, created by desire. And so if Abhi as a person has certain goals has a certain truth, has certain ambitions, wants to experience certain things, wants to live in certain places, wants to have a certain kind of house, wants to drive a certain kind of car, wants to dress a certain way, wants to have a certain kind of resume, and he wants to do it in a way that is true to Abi, then what that truth is for Abi and what all of that is indicated by the North Node's placement in the birth chart. And the North Node going around the chart keeps Abi developing. It says, okay, Abi, if you want this kind of house and you want these kinds of experience, and then this is who you really are at your core, and you want to learn how to master the part of the chart, the house and the sign of the chart in which your North Node is at the time of your birth, then here's the path and here are the experiences that you're going to need to integrate. The only challenge is that that desire never quenches. And by moving towards that desire, it is that classic thing of be careful what you wish for, because then once you get something close to it, then it creates the desire to maintain it or to hold on to it. It's like you get that mansion, now you've got to pay the property taxes, for as long as you've got it. Then you've got to repair the roof. Then you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And if you've got, it just creates, you're just constantly. Now, for some people, it's not without satisfaction. I have always said that the key to a fulfilled life, particularly a fulfilled second half of life, is to align with the North Node in your birth chart. Wow, I'm going off on a tangent. Well, the Sun is conjuncting the North Node. But ultimately, that kind of fulfillment and the seeking of any kind of fulfillment and satisfaction in 3D reality, in life, is constantly under threat. It's all unstable. It's all changing. So we get to this idea of, well, what is it that's going to give me ultimately some sense of contentment? And the only thing that is going to give us some sense of contentment is a connection to Source through detachment. I've got to get to a point where I don't care if I get it or not, if I don't fulfill my desires or not. But this is we're getting to a lot of, I can just feel this recording turning into like a 3-hour. I just like, and I can just tell that we want to keep going, but it's time to bring this back to the weekly overview. Wherever the North Node is in any part of the chart, in the house of the chart that it is transiting, is where, and it's a very real thing. The thing with Saturn, the thing with the North Node, the thing with Pluto, as much as we would like to not be dealing with we are living in 3D, we are dealing with cause and effect. And I'm going to let each of us find the spiritual path that helps us through the discontent that is part and parcel of living in this 3D reality. And it's not meant to be, I hope you guys are not taking ending, with the discontent, oh my God, this is so depressing. And it just is what it is. And we know this. Hope is an exciting thing. I mean, we wake up every morning trying to get to a certain place. It's kind of an enlivening, exciting thing. And listen, by taking action, Saturn is the path, really, to, you want to experience the exhilaration of being able to create change in your environment. Then you tap into that Saturn energy and you show up with discipline, responsibility, and consciously aware of cause and effect, and imbue everything with clean intention and disciplined conscious action. And you might be surprised at how much you're able to do. And Saturn would say those moments of satisfaction are worth it. The North Node going over Pisces, the house occupied by Pisces, which we're trying to stabilize, either by moving towards concretizing and building on Neptunian ambitions, or countering Neptunian irresponsibility or Neptunian deception, whether we're the deceiving party or someone else is the deceiving party. Saturn is saying it is time to face the music or create the music in a responsible, disciplined manner. The North Node eclipses, wherever they go, say there's something in this part of the chart that you need to lean into, that you need to experience, that you need to go towards, that you need to move towards, that you need to capitalize on, that will help you develop your skills. It will give you what you need next to keep developing in this 3D way. Abi, the person who desires certain things, who has a certain strategy he was here to experience, certain experiences he is here to get out of this life that he's leading, well, the North Node and where it's transiting holds the key to those developments. And as I said, covered part of this energy in the New Moon and Pisces video. There's going to be more to come here. And covered this energy for the rising signs in the New Moon and Pisces video for each rising sign, to know what this means in each house. The Sun conjuncting the North Node at present brings an awareness to what it is that the North Node wants us to get out of the Pisces part of the chart. But it is a little bit complicated because the overwhelming energy right now, till May, that's my cat, he's calling out to me, because I'm doing this at 9:26 p.m. and it's close to bedtime, and cats are so routine bound. He's just like, why are you talking to that phone again? Valentine, I know I'm coming. Because the North Node currently is so wrapped up in these conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn, it's a little bit hard to experience the North Node Pisces eclipses totally cleanly and clearly right now. Part of it has to do with the fact that we still need to go through one more North Node solar eclipse in Aries, the old Aries Libra eclipses. This is part of the reason why I've been saying we don't really leap into the Pisces Virgo eclipses until after the first week of June. That's when we can really feel, for about a year especially, even though the Pisces... Valentine, please, I'm doing this video. Stop it. I'm sure he understands English. He is a talker. He's like a squeaky toy. Valentine. So, Sun conjuncting the North Node. Wow, this is, what a video this is turning out to be. Sun conjuncting the North Node tries to connect our awareness to what it is that we might need to be leaning into the Pisces part of the chart for our development. As I said, I'm not sure that it isn't muddy, because most of the awareness we need to bring right now with regard to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart is really owned and managed and controlled by Saturn and Neptune. But once we get to after the end of the first week of June, we're going to be feeling that Pisces North Node energy a lot more. The Sun conjuncting Neptune on the 19th is a trickier energy, my friends. And this is what I want to give you a heads up about. We've cleared the Sun conjuncting Saturn on the 12th. The Sun conjuncting Neptune on the 19th, and it's the 14th, so we're going to start to be feeling it. Our attention is going to start to be pulled also towards an awareness of that Neptunian energy that has been shadowing us in the Pisces part of the chart since 2012 and reached a kind of a crisis point in 2014-15, but especially 16-17. The crisis in Pisces that Saturn is now trying to stabilize. Neptunian ambitions and goals, but most importantly for certain people, feelings of loss, deception around things that they may have been attached to, feeling like somebody else is being Neptunian and woolly and foggy and gaslighty and deceiving, maybe us who are playing our cards close to our chest, matters related to the Pisces part of the chart being murky, not clear, not completely clean with the details, everything not being aware, everything not being open, everything not being transparent. And also with Neptune going over Pisces, the third thing is us not being able to handle and manage affairs related to the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces, in a responsible manner. The Sun conjuncting Saturn and conjuncting the North Node, probably mild and not completely, the signal is not completely clean yet, because the poor North Node is like in between this Saturn-Neptune energy that is so overwhelming, and the Sun moving more and more towards Neptune. We are going to become more and more aware as we head towards the 19th of the presence of this Neptunian energy still, and what we need to do in order to concretize Neptunian ambitions, counter Neptunian fogginess with our needing to show up in a disciplined manner to manage our affairs responsibly in the Pisces part of the chart. And the thing that I'm most concerned about for some of us is an awareness of where things stand with those deceptive energies and unclear energies and gaslighty energies and even paranoid energies. As I've told you, if you're dealing with matters or people who are not being completely transparent and who enjoy withholding information or who are deliberately withholding information, it's very difficult then to approach matters related to them or this part of the chart without having that overlay. One of the things that Saturn has been doing for us, which is wonderful, is been saying, here's what's actually happening. But Saturn is also pointing to and saying, here's what's not happening or may not be happening. So here's where you actually need to be concerned and need to take action. And here is where things have gone into the realm of fantasy and paranoia, because that's what happens under Neptune. It's a little bit like if you're encountering a boss or a teammate or a colleague or a relative or a parent or a child or a sibling who is not being completely open and transparent. It becomes very hard then to not interact with matters related to that party without letting everything being overshadowed by, can I believe this? Can I trust this? What does this mean? How does this link with this? How does this link with that? So for some of us, I want you just to be aware with the Sun, so what any discomfort that comes with the Sun conjuncting a planet like Saturn this past week, or with Neptune, the way to channel it is to channel it towards responsible action. What do I need to do to manage this? Do I need to ask questions? Do I need to set some boundaries? What does this awareness give me? The Sun conjuncting Saturn this last week, heading right into the full moon lunar eclipse, could have meant that some of us took action out of awareness and fear and responsibility, but we are also able to reap certain rewards by virtue of the fact that we did take those actions. It's classic Saturn. And the Sun conjuncting Neptune, unless, in the Pisces part of the chart, you're getting ready to go on some sort of a monastic retreat or do something musical or artistic or something therapeutic, or are in the middle of coming up with business plans around how to achieve these goals, the Sun conjuncting Neptune can create awareness, and through awareness, anxiety. But I think the best way to use that energy is to let it fuel you towards the right action to address what the Sun-Neptune, the awareness that the Sun-Neptune conjunction are creating. If the sun goes somewhere and exposes with its giant spotlight every single shadow, nook and cranny, and you're able to see every spider's web in the corner and every dust bunny and every, then it gives you the ability to do something about it. You know that it's there. And you know how messy things have gotten or not gotten. So it gives you a sense of, all right, I better get out the broom. Or the vacuum cleaner, or whatever that is. On the 20th, the sun enters Aries. It's happy in Aries, archetypally. It is the equinox, isn't it? Am I losing my mind? Spring equinox. The days and nights are of equal length. And the Aries part of the chart starts to get that illumination. Now, we're not done in the Pisces part of the chart, of course, because Venus and Mercury are getting ready to retrograde into Pisces. But after the 20th, as we head towards the 22nd and the 24th, and the sun is getting ready to conjunct a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury, remember that Venus and Mercury are combust. And as I mentioned in the last video I did on Mercury going retrograde, the sun and a retrograde Mercury conjuncting end the Mercury communication cycle in Sagittarius and start the communication cycle in Aries. That'll have its own separate video. But the first part, through the 19th part of next week, has a very heavy focus and spotlight on the Pisces part of the chart. And then after the 20th, as the sun enters Aries, right into his conjunctions with a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury, that focus shifts in terms of the solar spotlight into the Aries part of the chart. And picking up on Venus and Mercury being conjunct earlier this past week, it could be that by the end of next week, you start to get there are some follow-up actions that are more forward-looking related to the Aries part of the chart. Remember that Mercury and Venus were not able to get past the 10-degree mark in Aries. They had to go retrograde. And the new moon solar eclipse that happens on the 29th is at that 9 and 10-degree mark and moves the energy forward. But before that energy can go forward, both Mercury and Venus need to communicate with the sun. The sun gives planets like Mercury and Venus and Mars their marching orders. Our solar awareness passes the baton, sits down to tea every now and then with Venus and Mercury especially, and Mars, to say, based on what we know and based on this sweeping assessment that I have done, I am leaving Pisces and entering Aries. What's been going on here? Let me pick up on that. But just as you go into Pisces, considering I've just walked out of Pisces, let me give you your marching orders so that as you separate from me and gain power and get back your light, which is really the reflected light of the sun, but as planets become more visible, they become more powerful, they start to exercise their influence more with agency. Some people would say that when a planet is retrograde or when a planet is combust, it's more powerful because you miss it. You feel its absence. So as you head to the 22nd and the 24th, the actual feeling of Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde may intensify. As I said, you feel the retrograde energy the most when a planet is going retrograde or going direct. But you also feel it in a slightly smaller way when that planet, in this case Mercury and Venus, are conjuncting the sun. Those planets lose power and agency because they're locked up in a conference room with the sun, who is giving them their marching orders. They're downloading information. They're having a conference. What do we value? What is going on with my finances? What is going on with my resources? What is going on with my relationships? What do I value? How do I continue to bring them into alignment? What needs to be done with relationships and resources in the Pisces part of the chart as Venus, start to move towards retrograding into Pisces, conjunct with Saturn. On the way, of course, I'm going to conjunct with Neptune at the North Node, conjunct with Saturn, then go direct and conjunct with Saturn again. And then when I am direct, I get to finally bring peace and resolution to the Pisces part of the chart and the stabilization work that we're doing. In a more short term, Mercury, after meeting with the Sun, goes back into Pisces, conjuncts Neptune, conjuncts the North Node, goes direct. And by April 7th, is out of Pisces. And when he's direct in Pisces, can have some communications to contribute to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. I like it when Venus is trailing behind all these planets, because with all the energy and the action that is being taken by the Sun, by Mercury, the month created by the Sun and the Moon when they have their new moon, sometimes Mars, when Venus follows behind, she goes through the part of the chart where all this energy is taken and says, all right, let's harmoniously bring matters in this part of the chart into some sort of resolution. As I've been saying to you the last 2 weeks of April, and you may, in certain cases, feel like you have to see something half empty as half full, but it's a resolution. Venus can lead to harmony and peace and stabilization in the Pisces part of the chart. But as we head into the end of next week, both Venus and Mercury are retrograde, combust, still in Aries, conjuncting with the Sun. Remember that ultimately what we're trying to get to, my friends, is creating a future state by the end of the first week of June in primarily the Aries, but also the Taurus and the Gemini part of the chart. The new moon solar eclipse occurs on March the 29th. For those people who have Mercury retrograde in their birth charts, you may well feel that new moon solar eclipse in Aries. And this is the last of the eclipses that have been going on since March, April 2023. Which direction do we want to move in? What are we trying to create? Where are we trying to head to? Where are we trying to go? Doesn't matter if it matters, but it also doesn't. The fact that it promises more than it delivers, and the fact that the North Node can bring awareness and challenges. It's like the North Node is saying, you want to do this? This is what this really looks like. You want to work in an investment bank? This is what the politics looks like. You want to be a sculptor? This is what the reality of that looks like. So we can take the disappointment and be disappointed with it, or we can take what the North Node is showing us and go, oh, so this is what it's really like. This is what I have to master. This is what I have to figure out. How do I navigate this? I've always wanted to be the CEO of my own company, my own team. And the North Node is very likely to give you that, but during that time, you might be like, oh my God, I absolutely hate this and this and this, and I've got to do this and this and this, and I hate this and I hate this and I hate this. Well, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to incorporate those experiences, put them on your resume, and then you're going to say, well, but this is leading me actually to what I want to do next is this. I've learned, I like this, I don't like this, I'm moving on to this. Or the other thing you could do is say, no, all these things that I hate, I've got to figure out how to master and how to manage them and how to deal with them and how to not be on the receiving end of something, because I am so, wherever the North Node is leading us has desire, but it does not have experience. So we're constantly out of our comfort zone. We're constantly feeling like our muscles are weak. The South Node, our muscles are overdeveloped. we can get pulled into the South Node and we can handle matters related to our South Node with ease. We have a subconscious strength. We mastered those in previous lifetimes. Also, the theory goes. We come in with those skills. Sometimes it's easier to make money where your South Node is because but it's stagnant. You can live in the South Node, you can make your money from the South Node, but you feel like life has no purpose, no excitement. You feel like, you know, when people say they're leading the wrong life, or they feel like they're alive, but they're kind of dead, chances are they might be living in their South Node because there's no excitement, there's no growth. There's a certain type of mastery, but it's stagnant. So the new moon solar eclipse, with the eclipse cycle that began in March and April of 2023, has one more solar eclipse to go to say, let's finish whatever it is that we are here to try and master or learn. Or if you don't like what you've gotten and you've been able to put on your resume, then what does it lead you to? Where do you want to go next? What do you want to do next? Very often with the North Node, people will say, oh, I can check this off, I can check this off, I can check this off, but I don't like this and this. But, you know, that's put me in touch with what I really want to do. Okay, well, then that's the other way that the North Node can function. One more of these eclipses on the Aries Libra axis on March 29th. If you have Mercury retrograde, you may experience it around March 29th when Mercury is retrograde. If you have Mercury direct, you may get something, and we're certainly getting to that time frame with the Sun entering Aries on the 20th and conjuncting Venus on the 22nd and Mercury on the 24th, and then moving towards the new moon on the 29th, new moon solar eclipse. And on the 30th, Neptune enters Aries. There's another video we're going to be doing for the next 12 years in Aries. Only briefly, Neptune comes into Aries for a certain amount of 2025 and then goes back into Pisces to finish things up at the end of 2025 till February 26. But we'll talk about Neptune and Aries. So the future state is in the Aries part of the chart where there's North Node eclipse. The Sun conjuncted Uranus in Taurus on April the 20th for about 13 months after that, which takes us to May the 20th. You can make that the end of the first week of June. There are consequences and changes in the Taurus part of the chart, wanting greater alignment with what is right for us. And our path may not be the conventional path. Our breadcrumbs in the Taurus part of the chart, and Jupiter finishes his transit in Gemini on June the 9th, by the end of the first week of June. Till the end of the first week of June, we're still dealing in prior energies, but there's something more to be gotten and completed. The future state that we're trying to create and get to is on the other side of stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart in March and April. So the first half of next week still puts its focus on the Pisces part of the chart, the conjunction with the North Node, but most importantly, that conjunction with Neptune that keeps you alive to those energies that you're trying to stabilize since 2012, but especially since 2014, 15, 16, 17. And there's power in the awareness, however uncomfortable, because it will allow you with all the Pisces part of the chart, most important part of the chart in 2025. Saturn is going to come back into the Pisces part of the chart after he leaves in May, between September of this year and February of next year, to finish the stabilization. So the conjunction with Neptune can give you a lot of awareness and motivation around taking action to handle and manage, and in some cases, honor Neptune's transit in Pisces. And in the second half of next week, the focus goes into the Aries part of the chart. The Sun comes into Aries, but it might still feel conditional. What do I mean by that? Venus and Mercury are retrograde and conjuncting with the Sun. The Sun has not made it to the 10-degree mark of Aries. The new moon has not happened yet. And for those people who have Mercury direct in your birth chart, something could come up in the last week of March, first week of April, that you may take or accept or move forward from. Take a look at this video I did on Mercury retrograde just before this one. But you are not able to experience it with clarity. Details around it may not be completely clear until after April the 7th. And then Mercury goes back direct and moving forward into Aries after April the 14th. But until you have the new moon in Taurus in April the 27th, you may not experience a certain amount of flow related to that opportunity. We are still in March and April, say it with me, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart while the Aries activity is going on. The Aries opportunity and forward movement start to gain greater prominence after the Sun enters Aries on the 20th of March. And in that last week of March, just to give you a heads up, the Sun conjuncts Mercury on the 24th, Mars squares Chiron on the 26th. This is why after this particular video, this is why I'm doing this video a little earlier than normal, so that I can then focus on Mars being direct and getting ready to square Chiron and trine Saturn and trine the North Node and trine Neptune and move towards opposing Pluto. The only one of these aspects that Mars actually makes in March is Mars squaring Chiron. A retrograde Venus conjuncts Neptune on the 27th, after Venus comes back into Pisces. On the 29th, Mercury retrograde conjuncts Neptune, and we have the new moon solar eclipse, and Mercury's back in Pisces, and then on the 30th, Neptune comes into Aries. Just when you thought it was going to get less eventful, it gets more eventful. And it remains pretty eventful till the end of April. But finishing up what we have to say about this next coming week, the Sun's going to conjunct the North Node, which still keeps us on the eclipse axis, which is fine. We may experience it more as an awareness of the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse and what we're releasing there and what we're trying to lean into in the Pisces part of the chart with the North Node. But that energy is not, the signal is not completely clean yet until the last of the Aries North Node eclipses is done and we're past the end of the first week of June. More importantly, the Sun conjuncts Neptune on the 19th. So awareness of these Neptunian energies, whether positive, because we're trying to concretize something Neptunian in the Pisces part of the chart, or challenging, deceptive, us being deceptive, someone else being deceptive, creating loss, fogginess, vagueness, or us not being able to get on top of affairs in the Pisces part of the chart due to irresponsibility or fogginess or dreaminess. The awareness of that is going to be there. I would recommend, just as you use the discomfort of the Sun conjuncting Saturn this past week and this full moon and this eclipse to motivate you into action, to get you to show up and be proactive and responsibly and in a disciplined manner handle the Pisces part of the chart, that energy remains a priority next week as the Sun gets ready to conjunct Neptune. Once the conjunction with Neptune is done, the next day the Sun enters Aries, and all of a sudden the awareness shifts into the Aries part of the chart and their conjunctions with a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury. Part of those conjunctions are informing Venus and Mercury about what needs to be done and managed and handled in the Pisces part of the chart as they go back there. Part of it in the second half of next week, for which this is a weekly overview, could involve further developments related to whatever it is that this Mercury-Venus conjunction earlier this week brought you. We don't get into full action land. And those conjunctions, it's the week before and after an eclipse that we can feel the energy of that eclipse that brings us to from the 22nd onwards. And the Sun conjuncts Venus on the 22nd and Mercury on the 24th. And then the new moon solar eclipse happens on the 29th, and from there action starts. And that action is decisive. If you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, if you have Mercury direct, you may still pick up on something and commit to something, and something may come to you, but you just have to be aware that details around it might get clarified after April the 7th, even more after April the 14th, And the action towards it and the energy towards it and the flow towards it may really start after the April 27th Taurus new moon. Okie dokie. What if, I'm sorry, there are times when I do these readings and I think, oh, that was such a fun video. This was a fun video. But then I feel like the feedback I might get is, I don't know. And then there are times when I do videos when I think, oh my God, that was such a terrible video. I don't think that was it. And I get like overwhelmingly positive feedback on it. So, you know, the important thing, I guess, is to show up and do the work that I want to do and to get it out there. And it's a question of who it resonates for. That's not for me to manage. So I hope you found this useful. If you want to become a member and look at sign-specific content, that information is in the description box below. If you want to reach out to me for a personal reading, there are specials. There are my normal readings on offer. Just email me in the email address in the description box below, and I'll send you the relevant information, and you can decide if you want to move forward or not. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. As when you subscribe it, there is this kind of wiggly bell option on top. When you click on that subscribe button, you'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to this channel. If you want to donate to this channel, that information is also in the description box below. If you find this content useful, tell your friends or anybody who might benefit from this content, share it with them. You can contribute to this channel for free by liking this video or leaving a comment on this video if you feel so inclined, because they gave the video greater circulation on YouTube. Welcome to new subscribers. Thank you for your support, everyone. Truly. Thank you for your patience with this video. This was a little odd, unusual, but it was kind of fun. I hope you found it useful. More to follow. Next video, we're talking about Mars going direct and getting ready to, it never ends. It's never a dull moment. The planets, everything keeps moving. We're going to talk about Mars getting ready to square Chiron and trining Saturn and Neptune and getting ready to oppose Pluto, and the North Node, trining out the North Node and getting ready to oppose Pluto. And then when it is in Leo and Venus really moves ahead. Now, Mars will trine Mercury a couple of times too, but ultimately, as we keep moving forward, it does get to trine. Mars is going to be in Leo and Venus is going to be in Aries, and they're going to trine. And that, to me, in some ways, clears the energy of this Mars retrograde. But the Mars retrograde this time around has been enormously helpful and supportive. It's like this supportive beam that it has given to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. But I do want to talk to you about it so that you start to become aware of and connect to the energy, because it's a very powerful energy to tap into. And all the astrology of March and April is leading towards Mars opposing Pluto and the new moon in Taurus. That's when the energy starts to move forward. And the Mars-Pluto opposition is not an easy or a pleasant energy necessarily. It's an important energy. It's a shake-up energy. It's a powerful energy. It might give us a lot of power to handle and tackle certain things by that point in time. But what has been lovely with this Mars retrograde is to have these trines when things have felt so threatened and so terrifying for some people in the Pisces part of the chart. It's nice to have that beam from Mars, which is why I want to do the Mars video, and then I want to talk about what Mars in Cancer and how it's supporting the Pisces part of the chart, how that is showing up in the rising sign specific signs. And after that, we'll shift our attention to the new moon solar eclipse in Aries and Neptune entering Aries. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.